Before the fireworks and parades, before the birth of a nation, there was a continent full of promise, vast, wild and untamed, waiting to be shaped by new hands and new dreams. This was North America in the 1700s, a land of opportunity and uncertainty, where the future was unwritten. Colonists from Europe, especially Britain, braved the perilous Atlantic crossing for new opportunities, freedom and the hope of a better life. They established 13 unique colonies along the eastern coast, each with its own character, customs and ambitions. Though they built their own towns, farmed the land and managed local affairs, their lives were still deeply connected to the distant mother country. They remained subjects of the powerful British Empire, ruled by King George III and Parliament, whose laws and taxes reached across the ocean. For years this arrangement seemed to work. The colonies sent valuable resources to Britain and in return received protection and a sense of belonging to a great empire. Ships carried timber, tobacco and other goods across the sea, while British soldiers guarded colonial ports and towns. But the vast Atlantic Ocean created more than just physical distance. It was a barrier that made communication slow and understanding difficult. Over time, this distance fostered a new independent spirit among the colonists, who began to rely on themselves and their communities. Over generations, they developed their own identity, shaped by the challenges of the land, the diversity of their backgrounds, and the need for self-reliance. The hardships of farming rugged land and building new lives in the wilderness forged a spirit of resilience and cooperation. Local self-governance became a cherished tradition, as colonists gathered in town meetings to make decisions and solve problems together. Slow communication with Britain only deepened their sense of separation, making the colonies feel more and more like a world apart. The colonists began to see themselves less as Britons and more as Americans, united by shared experiences and a growing sense of destiny. They built their own economy, traded with neighbours and distant lands, and developed a worldview shaped by the realities of life in America. This growing divide, cultural, practical and emotional, became impossible to ignore. Tensions simmered as colonial militias formed, and debates with British officials grew more heated, setting the stage for conflict. The seeds of independence were quietly taking root, nourished by hope, frustration and the dream of self-determination. Soon, that quiet would give way to revolution. A new chapter in the story of America was about to begin. Everything changed after the costly French and Indian War ended in 1763. The war had drained Britain's treasury, leaving the empire with massive debts and a vast new territory to govern in North America. British leaders believed the American colonies should help shoulder the financial burden of their own defense and the costs of maintaining the new lands. To raise money, Britain imposed a series of new taxes, starting with the hated Stamp Act, which required colonists to pay for official stamps on legal documents, newspapers and even playing cards. These taxes were deeply unpopular and felt like an unfair burden to many colonists. Colonists protested loudly, "No taxation without representation." They argued that since they had no elected representatives in the British Parliament, it was unjust to force them to pay taxes decided by a distant government. This rallying cry quickly spread throughout the colonies. More taxes soon followed, the Townshend Acts, the Tea Act, each one sparking new waves of anger, organised boycotts of British goods and growing unrest in colonial towns and cities. Tensions exploded in dramatic events like the Boston Massacre, where British soldiers fired on colonists, and the Boston Tea Party, when colonists defiantly dumped British tea into Boston Harbour as a protest against unfair taxes. In response, Britain cracked down with the harsh, intolerable acts, closing Boston's busy port and sending more troops to enforce strict new laws, hoping to crush the spirit of resistance. But instead of backing down, the colonies united in opposition. Leaders from different regions came together, seeing these laws as direct attacks on their rights and freedoms as Englishmen. The idea of self-government grew stronger, as colonists began to imagine a future where they could make their own laws and govern themselves without interference from across the ocean. The path to a complete break from Britain was now unmistakable. Each new law and act of resistance pushed the colonies further from reconciliation and closer to open rebellion. Revolution was no longer just a distant possibility. It was becoming inevitable as the colonies stood on the brink of a new and uncertain future. In 1774, delegates from 12 colonies met in Philadelphia for the First Continental Congress, hoping to resolve their disputes with Britain. Their petition for peace was rejected. King George III declared them in rebellion. In April 1775, the first shots rang out at Lexington and Concord. War had begun. The fight for rights became a fight for survival. Early in 1776, Thomas Paine's Common Sense electrified the colonies, arguing for full independence and ridiculing monarchy. The pamphlet swayed public opinion, making the idea of breaking away seem not just possible but necessary. As the war raged, the Second Continental Congress reconvened. The hope for reconciliation faded. The delegates now debated declaring independence. The colonies were no longer just resisting taxes, they were fighting for a new nation. The time for petitions was over. The time for a bold declaration had arrived. The Continental Congress knew a formal declaration was needed to explain their actions, rally support, and seek foreign alliances. In June 1776, a committee of 5, including Thomas Jefferson, was chosen to draft the document. Jefferson, known for his eloquence, wrote the first draft, drawing on Enlightenment ideas and colonial grievances. The Declaration's preamble proclaimed that all men are created equal with unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The document listed the colonies' complaints against King George III, justifying their break. Its final section declared the colonies free and independent states. The future of a new nation was set on paper. Now Congress had to approve it. Jefferson's draft was reviewed and revised by the Committee of 5, then presented to Congress on June 28, 1776. The real turning point came on July 2nd, when 12 colonies voted for independence. John Adams predicted July 2nd would be celebrated for generations, but Congress spent 2 more days editing the Declaration, making key changes, including removing a passage condemning the slave trade to secure unity. On July 4th, Congress approved the final text and ordered it printed and distributed. John Hancock and Charles Thomson were the first to sign. The famous signed copy came later, but July 4th became the official date of America's birth. It was the day the world learned of a new nation. The 4th of July would become a symbol of freedom. News of the Declaration spread slowly across the colonies, carried by word of mouth, horseback messengers, and printed broadsides. But as soon as the news arrived in each town, spontaneous celebrations erupted, filling the streets with excitement and hope for a new future. In Philadelphia, on July 8, 1776, the Declaration was read aloud to cheering crowds and ringing bells, perhaps even the Liberty Bell itself. The city was alive with energy, as people gathered to witness history in the making. In New York, citizens took bold action by toppling a statue of King George III, a powerful symbol of British rule. The metal from the statue was melted down and transformed into musket balls for the Continental Army, turning a symbol of oppression into tools for freedom. These early celebrations were raw, passionate, and deeply patriotic, marking a dramatic break from old authority and the beginning of a new American identity. The first planned anniversary came in 1777, just 1 year after independence was declared. Parades filled the streets, military salutes echoed through the city, and fireworks lit up the night sky over Philadelphia, setting the stage for future generations. Even as war raged on, the 4th became a day for Americans to unite, put aside their differences, and reaffirm their commitment to the cause of independence and liberty. Traditions of public readings, lively parades, and dazzling fireworks quickly spread across the new nation. becoming cherished rituals in towns large and small. The holiday helped forge a shared identity among a diverse people, bringing together men, women and children from all walks of life to celebrate their newfound freedom. Each year, the celebrations grew larger and more spirited, echoing the revolutionary ideals and the hope for a brighter future. The 4th of July became a living symbol of American unity, resilience, and the enduring promise of independence for generations to come. For decades, the 4th of July was celebrated by communities and citizens, but it wasn't an official holiday. Early celebrations were sometimes divided by politics, but after the War of 1812, the day became a unifying event. Massachusetts made it a state holiday in 1781. Other states followed. It took nearly a century for Congress to make it a federal holiday in 1870, alongside New Year's, Christmas, and Thanksgiving. In 1941, it became a paid holiday for federal workers. The 4th of July was now a national day of observance. Americans everywhere could pause to celebrate their nation's birth. The holiday's meaning was now enshrined in law. The 4th of July is more than a day off. It's a celebration of liberty and the courage to demand self-government. Fireworks echo the illuminations of the first celebrations, symbolizing the enduring flame of freedom. The holiday honors the founders' bravery and the sacrifices of those who fought for independence. Parades, music and flags pay tribute to that struggle and the price of freedom. The day is also a reminder of the nation's founding ideal: all men are created equal. Each year, Americans reflect on progress toward equality and the work still ahead. The 4th is a celebration of a nation built on shared ideas, not ancestry. It's a living testament to the power of ordinary people to shape their destiny. Today, the 4th of July is America's defining holiday. A day of parades, picnics and fireworks from coast to coast. Families and communities gather, connecting the present to the first celebrations over 2 centuries ago. For new citizens, naturalization ceremonies on the 4th add personal meaning to the day. The holiday is a reminder that America is continually renewed by those who embrace its ideals. The Declaration's message of universal rights has inspired movements for freedom worldwide. The 4th is a celebration of an idea that belongs to everyone. It marks how a belief in liberty became a nation. The holiday endures because it celebrates principles: liberty, equality, and self-governance. Each year, Americans remember the past, celebrate the present, and look forward to a future shaped by the promise of 1776.